The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Listeners of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, I bring to you the pre-order for the 2018 Matt Talk Online NCAA Division I Fan Guide, the digital preview guide that's over 200 pages of facts, stats, results. If there is a result that happened in NCAA wrestling and that wrestler is in the NCAA Division I championships coming up in Cleveland, I guarantee you that result will be in the guide. Save yourself $5 by using the offer code podcast. Go to matttalkonline.com/fanguide18. Click the I want this button. Click order now, pre-order. It'll be digitally delivered to your inbox on March 13th, maybe even a skosh earlier. Over 200 pages of facts, stats, results. I stake my reputation on the claim that this is the single greatest thing that will add to your knowledge and experience at the NCAA championships. Everything you want to know about 330 wrestlers and all the teams competing, available. matttalkonline.com/fanguide18. Use the offer code podcast. Save yourself $5. It is a short-time listener exclusive. This is the product that ESPN and all the Mad Side broadcasters use, their production truck, their broadcasters. You name it, it's in there. Facts, stats, again, I've said results, pub trivia, All-American lists. You find out all these things from the NCAA championships. I could go on for an entire show about it, but right now, I'm just going to say, matttalkonline.com/fanguide18, offer code podcast. You will not be disappointed. And welcome back to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. Jason Bryant here with you with news, reviews, previews, and interviews for all the pertinent topics in the sport of wrestling. Today, our guest, Arizona State head wrestling coach Zeke Jones. Zeke, had a chance to work with you at USA Wrestling. We were coworkers. Now we're back in the similar co-working space, but now I get to cover you guys instead of you telling me what I can't put on the internet. So this one's all on me. Welcome to the program.
Yay, thanks for having me, Jason. That's right. You can't give all the Russians all the secrets now. Certainly don't want you giving Penn State and Iowa the secrets right now as well.
Well, we'll see where you go with that line of discussion. So right now, coming off a big win, actually the 9th win in a row for the program, you honored the 1988 national championship team. Coach Bobby Douglas, you brought back. You had former teammates and former members of that great team that was the only NCAA Division I wrestling program in the West to ever have won a national title. What was it like to see some of those guys again?
Well, it's 30 years later, they certainly have changed, but they're certainly the same. You don't miss a step when you see your teammates, even after 30 years. You've been through so many battles and so many times together. But like anything, we've all aged, and it's just really fantastic to see them and their families, and for them to get together to really honor what is history.
Yeah, what was it like wrestling for those teams back then?
Well, it was a lot of fun. I never thought about, I'm moving from Michigan to the West to win a national title in the West. I think you'll start to learn more about that. As you look at history, but really, we were just in the battle together trying to win a championship and, training alongside each other. They all had similar goals. I mean, Bobby, he didn't recruit us just to come to Arizona State to be the best in the country, to be the best in the world. And Mike Davies was a junior world champ. John Ginther was a 2-time junior world champion. I mean, we had guys that were top recruits in the country coming out of high school, and Arizona State was a top 10 team at the time. And, we wanted to win a championship together, and Bobby was able to put those guys together.
You're looking at your top 10 team now, coming in ranked number 8 in the country in the coaches poll that was released today, as a matter of fact, on January 23rd, 9-2. You got a Virginia Duels championship. You got several All-American contenders and All-Americans in your lineup. So do you see any similarities to what you're building now to what that 88 team was like?
Yes, I do. I mean, you see those that, are aspiring to be national champions, All-Americans. And, I look back through the group, we had 7 All-Americans that year we won the title. and we left a two-time All-American at home who got hurt the week after the Pac-12 championships, 2 weeks before the NCAA tournament, at John Ginther, and it was a big blow. We thought, man, it's going to be hard to win without John, but the team really rallied for John and the rest of us to be able to win it. But, I think that you see hardworking individuals that are committed, that care, that it makes it important to them, that they want to be successful. And, so I see a lot of similarities.
One thing that we can't overlook right now has just been the dominance that Zaid Valencia has had at 174 pounds. Coming off a world silver medal at the Junior World Championships in Tampere, Finland. First of all, what was the decision to let him go 174 after having such success in the offseason and kind of up a weight?
Yeah, he's been, as we all know, he's been wrestling internationally at about 186, 184 pounds, and has had tremendous success there. But he really hasn't been that big. He has grown 10 pounds over from last year to this year. But at the same time, he's leaned out, 174, he's not walking around much more than that right now. I think I think it's going to be an 86 kilo down the road permanently. But right now, he's a solid 174 pounds, doesn't cut a lot of weight, but certainly has the frame to be bigger. But I don't think it's anything different. Regardless of size, skill, his speed, his technique, his ability to move in combination, transition wrestle. He can barrage you with 800 attacks within a minute. The pace is high. He's tremendously skilled. He can score a lot of different ways, top, bottom, neutral. And that's what makes it difficult to wrestle.
So say go back to last year. Say he wins the national championship. Say he beats Mark Hall in the semis and wins the national championship. Is he considering going back to 74, or do you think he would be content to go up to 84?
I don't think it's really predicated upon, I think he certainly likes the opportunity to wrestle Mark, right? Because that was a pretty important match last year. But I don't think he's only driven by that. I think he's driven by domination, where he can dominate the most. I also think that where the challenge is at, I think he tends to chase those things. Where's the challenge? Where can I dominate? And that's what drives him to a weight class. I think probably like Mark, who could probably go a couple different weight classes. So he can go a couple different weight classes and believe, he can win.
We look at the depth of this program. Ryan Milhoff transferred in the program. He's an All-American. Of course, Zaid's an All-American, and Tanner Hall's All-American. A couple guys that are really looking to break through this year. Josh Shields has been really performing very well. Jason Surtis is eligible, battling for that spot at 149 pounds. But what's it meant to have another year with a guy like Tanner Hall, and then have an opportunity to finally get Ryan Milhoff in the lineup?
Yeah, you're really looking at a relatively young team. The nucleus of the group are sophomores. You sprinkle a couple juniors in there and a kid like Surtis as a senior. But, the beauty is they're virtually all back next year again. And then you start adding kids in the lineup, or potentially in the lineup, right? Like Brandon Courtney and Chikori Teamer, and of course the kids that are, verbally committed through that junior group. I think that you got something special happening. But like anything, you got to do the work. And there's certainly a great team out in Pennsylvania that's in Ohio that are saying, hey, you got to come beat us. They're certainly the favorites. But I think we're putting those pieces together where we can start getting in contention.
From a coaching perspective, how difficult is it when you have lineup situations that Surtis has presented, at 157, 149, and you got two guys that are young, they're hammers, they're ready to break through, but having a national champion in your lineup or trying to put him in the lineup, that's got to cause a little bit of gray hairs in terms of the coaching side of it.
Yeah, anytime you have depth, as we know, we call it a good problem. And trust me, the good is wonderful, and the problem is hard too. No one lives that problem more than the head coach with the individual that's not, unfortunately, in the lineup, and it creates dynamics. But when you have a good group of core guys that are committed to the goal, regardless of that outcome, we love everybody on the team, regardless of whether they're in the lineup or not. But certainly the competition between guys like Maruka and Surtis, or, any of the other weight classes where we have that kind of depth, It certainly brings the best out in them. And, you could even say the worst, but really there is no worst other than just that, a little bit of that fear, man, I might not wrestle, but I think that fear motivates them to step up and really do the work, the little extra, the little bit more that you need to do to get in that spot. Because basically, you get in that spot, you believe you're going to get on top of the podium.
With a guy like Surtis, who'd had off the mat issues, I mean, he went through some personal struggles there. Ultimately led to him leaving Northwestern and looking for a fresh start at Arizona State. As a coach, what do you do with an athlete like that that's won a national titles, known how to win as far as their style? Do you just kind of let them wrestle their way? Do you try to tweak things? Or how do you work with an athlete that comes in your program and you've only got him for a very short time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a little bit of the national coaching experience. When you get a Jake Varner or Jordan Burroughs coming out of college, you don't have to do a lot with them, but you can certainly impact their development technically and just strategically. You're not doing lots of do-overs, but you're really fine-tuning. So you're fine-tuning what they already do and make it better. I think that's one of the beauties of our teams. He does not wrestle like Tanner. We all don't wrestle the same style, and I think that's the beauty of our team is you can wrestle here and come with virtually any style, and we can make it better. And that's just by virtue of my experience with the national team coaching position. But also, too, they come with a lot of gifts they're already good at. You don't want to change them, right? Jason Surtis stood on the podium for a reason. And so why change much? I mean, Zahid came very good right out of the gate. So why would you change what his dad did with him? But at the same time, you can make them better. Also, too, a kid like Jason specifically, he had some family tragedy. So the first thing you do is you give them support and love and help them. You surround them with people that care about them and want them to be successful, to help them through the challenges of, life where you don't have a family member now. I mean, it's grieving. It's, all the emotions that you go through as a person who struggles with a loss in a family. So the first thing you do is give them love and surround them with people that want to help them. And I think Jason, when he came, he said, wow, man, this is going to help me because I've got a team of people that want to help me and make me better.
So as that situation unfolds, 149, how are you going to handle it? I mean, we saw him split time. We saw Jason Surtis, have a better performance at the Midlands. We've seen them both in dual meets. Maruka got the shot last time out of the gate. So there's obviously the 1 hour weigh-in versus the 2 hour weigh-in with tournaments and duels kind of also can kind of sway that decision. So how are you as a staff saying, okay, who's going to win our spot at 149?
Well, we have that discussion weekly, right? Because we've been in a position where both have been able to compete virtually through the middle of January. I think everybody thinks the results have been essentially the same. One hasn't performed and the other one not performed. They both performed at varying levels. So each week we're having that discussion. Right now, we haven't made a decision on what we're doing. We still have, competition coming up. We have Bakersfield tomorrow. We have the Edinburgh Open next weekend. Then we have Lehigh Cal Poly before we wrap it up. But I can tell you this, we'll have it done in the next few weeks. But right now, we don't have a definitive plan on what we're doing.
All right, circling back, bottom half of the lineup, had mentioned Ryan Milhoff coming in from Oklahoma. Had a bit of a subpar Midlands, I think, by everybody's standards. Got beat pretty handily by Devin Schroeder from Purdue, and then defaulted out. And then he comes out and has a solid come from behind win over Ronnie Bresser. What's going on with Milhoff? Was it the Midlands just a temporary bump in the road, or is it something larger there that you guys are trying to tweak?
No, I think it's seasons are different for everyone. Ryan's season, he started out of the gate really fast. He had a couple slow tournaments, and then since then he's been on fire. I think that, it's just really, it's physical, it's mental, it's tactical, it's technical. And every time you're looking at, one of your wrestlers and you look at Ryan, I think, we all know he has the skill and the ability to be very, very good. Ryan's really hitting his stride right now. I mean, he's been competing at a really high level. I think he's, on track. I think he's got a guy named Josh Kramer, who at the Virginia Duels had a top 10 win. So I think he sees not only his goal of getting on top of the podium, but right in his own wrestling room, he's got a guy pushing him pretty hard. So I just think for Ryan, it's tactical and technical, just really hitting all cylinders, both physically and mentally. And I think he is now doing that.
Switching over to the other Valencia in the lineup, Anthony at 165 pounds. And your older brother wrestled and had success at Iowa State. And there's an age gap between you and Johnny, whereas you got Anthony and Zahid in the lineup, and one brother's seeing a lot more success than the other. How do you balance that as a coach and try to make sure that one wrestler isn't frustrated? Or, how does that dynamic work with Zahid having, the number one ranking and Anthony, kind of always being compared to the younger brother here?
Sure. Well, first off, you're brothers. So the one thing you never forget is how much you love each other, right? I also tell Zahid and Anthony, whether it's Tanner or Shields or Maruka or Sir, any of them, that you're on your own experience. You're on your own path. Everyone's path to the top of the mountain is different. To say that I got to be ahead or behind, of course we all want to have this perfect, wonderful experience, but it's not reality. You're going to go on your own path. But I do tell them that you need to pull each other along to that success, that you're doing this success together, that you want to. There's nothing better than winning yourself than watching you and your brother win it together. So I think they, in the room, they help each other. Oh, they certainly compete with each other, but they help each other. They know that they love each other. They smile and laugh with each other, and just understanding that Anthony's on their own path, but they're doing it together.
As far as the weight goes, a lot of people say that they believe that Anthony might be struggling at 165. What's the truth of the matter there with Anthony's weight cut?
Yeah, his weight's great. I mean, Anthony's, I don't think there's any issue with his weight cut. I think he's got to lose a little bit of weight, but nothing that's insurmountable. I think if Anthony really had to, he could even get to 57. In reality, that doesn't make sense. I think that optimal weight right now is 65. I mean, both Anthony and Zahid have the frame to move up, and that will happen when their bodies decide to do it. They just, they haven't quite got there. They certainly both got a little bit bigger this summer, which makes me think at some point they'll probably make the jump. Junior year, senior year, maybe. But I think they're Olympic weights too, right? As the Olympic weights stand, being down is where they'll both be when, their college careers are over and their summer, wrestling, making world teams. But I don't think there's any issue with Anthony's weight cut.
Let's come back off the honoring the 1988 team. There seems to be a fire, a good crowd there. You're getting the local community back involved. Of course, the Olympic sports movement there at Arizona State has been phenomenal. What's it meant to you to try to rebuild the program in terms of community involvement? We look at that 88 team, and of those 7 All-Americans, 3 were from the state of Arizona. So, getting that local products in there along with the elite guys from around the country. I mean, building the fan base is important. How much of an emphasis have you and Coach Pritz and Coach Pendleton put on building that local community with guys from Arizona and nationally?
Sure. Well, the first thing is you can't build a championship program without the community. The community is the key to your success. They do all the things that you're looking to do. You build a good wrestling product. People want to buy tickets. They want to come and watch you wrestle. You got to wrestle with fire and passion. That gets them excited. Certainly people want to be a part of programs that are progressing and competing for championships. Obviously, fundraising is a lifeblood for the sport of wrestling, and you got people in the wrestling community that love the sport, both as wrestlers and Sun Devil supporters, that want to see us be successful and are willing to invest in the program. We got fantastic support. It always starts with the president and the athletic director, and President Crow, who is a wrestler, loves the sport, sat in the front row against Stanford of our meet on Friday night, as well as Ray Anderson, who has been instrumental in putting our program in position to be successful. And of course, Scotty Graham and Don Bakke, who supervise wrestling daily, give us that support as well. But you can't do it without your local wrestlers too, right? Kids like Brandon Courtney come in the program are critical. They're developed in Arizona, essentially grew up right in the kids club, right in Phoenix and Tempe, and now, wins Fargo, and really is, I don't know, call him 15 and 3 or 4 as a redshirt freshman right now, competing, getting ready to start his career. You can't do it without the kids in your own state, and certainly the kids in Arizona. We can pump out 1 or 2 really good high school prospects, and they come to Arizona State. That's a key for us.
When you look at the arms race that's happening in college athletics, it's not just, the bigger, stronger facilities that they're putting in, new weight rooms and student lounges and things for the Power Five conferences in football and basketball. We've seen wrestling jump in with the regional training center model, and Arizona State's kind of been ahead of the curve with its relationship with Sunkist Kids for all those years. And how has that landscape changed, and how has Sunkist had to evolve with, okay, well, these schools have regional training centers. We're not kind of alone in saying that we've got Olympians training in our room anymore.
Yeah, I mean, this model, the Sunkist model, was in response to the 70s, 80s when Art Martori and Bobby Douglas came together trying to figure the way out to dethrone Iowa. And they started, the national club system at a high level. Then, it regionalized where you're bringing people into your location. They really were the visionaries behind that model. Of course, Iowa had guys training there. But, Sunkist took it to an Olympic level. And then not only that, branched out into other locations. But now, these guys know the footprint. They know the model. Ohio State basically is doing the model. Penn State's doing the model. Each of these programs are replicating the model. So not only do you got to, do it, you got to do it at a higher level. The best kids in the country, they don't want to be just the best in the country. They want to be the best in the world. They're looking for places where you have Olympic coaching and you have Olympic training partners, a club that wants to support a university that wants globalization within their university. And when you have that model, you're going to attract world and Olympic calibered medalists to your program. And Arizona State really was the place with Sunkist that created that model. And you just got to work hard at it. You got to have the ingredients, and you got to be well funded in that respect. And you got to have the knowledge and the expertise. And there's really only a few places that know how to do that.
In your coaching career, take USA Wrestling out of it. You spent a long time in Morgantown at West Virginia when there were athletes from Sunkist again working out there, and then to Penn, and then we've seen what the Pennsylvania Regional Training Center has done with one of your former coaches, Brandon Slay, back out there, and Roger Reyna. What are you seeing that has been the biggest change in college wrestling from a coach's perspective since when you were at West Virginia and at Penn to then when you came back to Arizona State a couple years ago?
Yeah, I'd say you're seeing a more CEO type approach, where programs are now, you're doing more than just coaching in the wrestling room. Of course, you're recruiting. Of course, you're doing the things, building the community. But more coaches are working with the USA Wrestling model now than ever before. I do think that, you're more integrated in social media. It's an important component to keep your community connected now because, as we know, wrestling before, there was very little communication because it was all paper. Now, with social media and ways for people to connect to your program through your radio station, and, you have to be current within technology to reach the customer. So coaches that are paying attention to that, I think you got to fundraise because athletic departments, they'll help you, but they also expect that you're going to help, your community is going to help fund the program. Even Penn State raises money for their program. So it tells you that you got to be a dynamic leader, not just a guy that knows a double leg.
We're looking at dynamic leaders. Arizona State has made some waves here recently with the hiring of Herm Edwards as the new football coach. Bobby Hurley, who I grew up watching, even though I'm not a Duke basketball fan, I grew up in ACC country, so I watched a lot of Duke Carolina, and Bobby Hurley as a point guard for those Duke teams, really part of my childhood growing up. How much interaction have you had with Coach Hurley, and have you guys bounced ideas off of coaching, elite level athletes? Because he wrestled, he played basketball for Coach Mike Krzyzewski, who is viewed as one of the great coaching minds of all time. And what are those discussions like with those two, and maybe other coaches within the Arizona State sports community to gain more knowledge from one another?
Yeah, well, I can tell you, Ray Anderson and President Crow haven't messed around. In their minds, they're going after the best coaching talent in America and the world, really. And when Ray brought in Bob Bowman, and who coached Michael Phelps, was the head coach of the Olympic team, to Bobby, who's now made tremendous strides, right? Where at one point was top 3 in the country with the team. We spend a lot of time in head coaches meetings where we're sharing ideas. Probably the biggest thing is just connectivity to each other and supporting each other. And we've had a couple recruits on campus that have met Bobby Hurley. I mean, I think that's the greatest thing. But he's not just Bobby Hurley, the famous basketball player. he's a coach who understands what you're trying to do and where you're headed. And regardless whether it's basketball, football, wrestling, swimming, diving, whatever it is. And Bobby's been fantastic. Herm's been on a sprint. It's not a 2-month sprint. It'll be a 2-year sprint, at least, where, he's going 18 hours a day. Actually, him and I just shared some texts today. I'm going to see him a little later today and chat about some operational stuff. But, when you have that kind of knowledge in one building, in one location, you can't help but to say, hey, how do you do this? What do you do? I remember right before the Pac-12s, I talked to Bob Bowman, and I said, hey, because they were getting ready to taper into their NCAA tournament as well, into the Pac-12s at the same time as us. And I said, hey, how are you tapering your guys? What are you doing, 2-day block, 3-day blocks? What are your reductions in percentages of minutes and intensity? And so, we're constantly bouncing those kinds of ideas off each other.
Yeah, and of course, I'm glad you brought up Bowman, who has had all the Olympic accolades as well. And is that something that you guys you talked about? Recruits meeting Bobby Hurley, Bob Bowman. I mean, this guy he's kind of legendary when it comes to the sport of swimming. I mean, it's like you're a world champ, but that's Bob Bowman too, man. How do you guys jockey for position on who's got the puffier chest around the athletic department?
Oh, I'm going to go with Bob right now. He's had 4 athletes on the Olympic team. I mean, we didn't do that. So he brings a tremendous amount of cachet. He's another time, we had recruited a kid who had a big swimming family, a wrestler, but he had swimming in his family. So it was really easy to pop by Bob's office. I texted him 10 minutes before, hey, we're coming by to see you. He said, come on over. And, he's a legend in the sport, and he's the best there ever has. I mean, right, he's only produced the most and the best world and Olympic champion swimmers. And guy loves sports, guy loves Sun Devils, wants to help. And, yeah, he's got the bigger chest right now for sure.
Now, as there is a tie-in between swimming and your coaching staff. Chris Pendleton was actually a swimmer and a wrestler, a rare combination on that. And let's talk about your staff a little bit. Lee Pritz was a holdover from the previous regime, still on staff with you there. You brought in Chris Pendleton from Wyoming, and you bring in Heisling Garcia as your volunteer coach, a 3-time Olympian from Canada. It's a unique staff when you look at it from the outside looking in. But how have you guys meshed and gelled, and where are the I guess the perpetual conflicts that lead to be better coaching as a unit?
First off, yeah, I'd say you've got with everything. I mean, certainly one, I've been in a few different staff changes, going on to another job. And one thing I've learned from athletic directors, it's always good to keep one guy around, can help in the transition. And Lee has been fantastic. When Lee and I got here, I was here and said, hey, let's go on the road together for 6 weeks, see how we do, get to know each other. And we had commitments from 4 of the top recruits in the country, which ended up leading to the number 1 recruiting class. So that got easy to keep Lee around that way. Chris being a big guy, 2-time national champ, member of 4 national championships teams, coached by John Smith, who's a legend in our sport, who's from California, who's a big guy, just made too much sense. I mean, he's a fantastic coach. Both him and Lee both have already had head coaching offers, but didn't want to leave because they love what they're doing here and the quality of the student athletes that we have here. But both one coached the junior world team, one coached the cadet world team last year. They're working at the highest level in their age groups, as well as, helping in the RTC. And then, like you said, Heisling, 3 Olympic teams, never lost to Stieber, never lost to Metcalf. And not only that, I'd had him in quite a few training camps with the U.S. team when he was wrestling for Canada, and I was coaching the U.S. team. He was in the room, kind of way he trained and how hard he worked, and one of the best hand fighters in the world. And thought, this is, and he could wrestle every day with Shields versus Maruka, Villarreal, Anthony, and he even goes with Zahid. He'll call Zahid out every once in a while. And trust me, Zahid has no problem going out there and wrestling him. But they, I think those guys together have been able to, one, elevate the guys on the team, right? Because we've gotten a lot better in a short amount of time, but also really care about the athletes and want to see them be successful.
Now, one person on your staff that I want to draw attention to is we've seen a rise of females working in the sport of wrestling, especially in this director of ops position. We got Amanda Dahl at Purdue, Melissa Simmons at North Carolina State, and Maddie Shasau, who's really been part of your program the last couple of years, coming from Iowa, so she knows a bit about wrestling. What has that role kind of evolved in collegiate wrestling, and what's it mean to see more women take an active role in that position and the sport of wrestling?
Yeah, she's been fantastic. I mean, she's a rock star. I always chuckled. We got about 80, 90 applications for that job. And when I saw that she had worked for Tom Brands, I said, if you work for Tom Brands, you can work for anybody. And I chuckled by calling Tom and saying, hey, what do you think of Maddie? And he said, man, she is excellent. And I'm like, okay, if you like somebody, she's got to be good. So she was just fantastic in helping us get the program, going in after our first year. And, she really handles the operational piece. And then, we brought Mackenzie on as well. Pavicic came from Virginia Tech, who has kind of grabbed our other project managing work as well as social media and broadcast, media, communications. And we have Molly, actually, too. It works in our communications department. So we have 3 M's, Maddie, Mackenzie, and Molly, who work with our team daily. And it's super super. If you have a support staff like that and you're trying to provide world-class level service, you have to have people in those roles, and they provide that for us.
Yeah, and of course, I think Mackenzie has provided a little bit of that Virginia Duels luck, because she was with Virginia Tech last year. They win the Virginia Duels title. Now she's in Tempe, and then you guys win the Virginia Duels. So maybe a Virginia Duels good luck charm there.
Yeah, I get, the only difference in the or the only similarity between the team champions over the last 6 years has been her. She's starting her master's, right, and the Cronkite School of Journalism, one of the best in the country, and so has a tremendous amount of experience, right, and working with Virginia Tech, an excellent program, and so she's done a fantastic job for us.
Yeah, and having worked with you at USA Wrestling, I'm sure Tom Brands is saying, if anybody can work for Zeke Jones, that's good enough for me. Because, you went through a couple of them there at USA Wrestling.
Hey, man, I'm like Tom. We work hard. You better be ready to do 15, 18-hour days. That's just how this thing works. And you know what? Most people would say we went through a lot, but what happened, Jason, is they all got promoted. They all got better jobs.
Yeah, worked for Zeke Jones. That moves you to the top of the list, because everybody in the Olympic family goes, hey, geez, you work for that guy? You're hired.
That's right. Exactly. You got a hard worker that can do the job.
Last thing I want to ask you about, because this still ties into your experience as the national team coach, the Final X process for men's and women's freestyle. What are your thoughts on the world team qualification process, and how does this affect how you're going to train up your guys to peak? You got the U.S. Open, then the Challenge Tournament finals, and then a best 2 out of 3 Final X kind of showcase event around the country.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing. Of course, a little bit different format. I really can't tell you till I go through it once. We'll strategize as best we can. Different dates, different times. I know my hope is that, certainly there's going to be an additional cost if a coach has got to fly to 3 different locations on 3 different weekends, and not just coach, even fans. But I think, building the TV product, it's at that expense, I think is good. I think if we can grow that side of it, grow the TV broadcast side at the expense of something else, it certainly makes sense. If we're going to swing at television, we're going to have to give something to get something. And if we got to give a little bit in that respect, no problem, because the bottom line is the best guy should win. To me, Jordan Burroughs' double leg is the same, whether it's folk style, freestyle, 1 point or 2 points. If he's the best guy, he's going to win.
Finishing up here with Zeke Jones as we head into the postseason this time of year. Expectations, goals, realistic places that you've got your team thinking heading into March. Like, how high can we finish? What is our goal? Do we have the team to not just bring home a trophy, but challenge that top tier for a national title this year and beyond?
Yeah, well, I think that's pretty simple. Every guy wants to be a national champion, right? I mean, in every team, but certainly ours. Our goal is daily improvement right now. and wrestle like it matters. Wrestle like you care, like it's important to you. Don't go out there to find out who's going to win. Go out there to attack every wrestling position and every hold. And, does wrestling matter to you? Do you care? Do you want to? You're not doing it for me. I'm the wrestling coach, so don't do it for me. You're doing it for yourself. And it's going to be over in just 6 weeks, 7 weeks. So you got to decide what you're willing to do for it. Are you willing to go into deep water knowing someone's not going to come back? You've got to have that mentality when you're going to the NCAA tournament, or you're not going to perform. And our guys right now are really wrestling with that intensity and passion. When they have a drop-off, it's usually because of that. And who can sustain that over time without letting your brain get crazy? What happens is people start having those crazy thoughts in their brain, the wrestlers, and then that's when they start to underperform or not perform their best ability. So right now, I really like the aggression. I mean, you can look at Millhoff's match with Presser, to Zahid, to all of them. They're competing with fire and intensity, whether they're winning or losing, and that's all you can ask for, and usually good outcomes happen.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. First time listening? Well, you can change that by going to MattTalkOnline.com/GetShortTime to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or listen on your favorite podcatcher at MattTalkOnline.com/listen.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.